Lisa Morgan stood on the bridge of her spaceship. She was looking out at the stars when her communications officer called her name. "Commander Morgan, we have an incoming message from the Zephyrian Royal Fleet," Jake Rivers said from his station. Lisa turned around. She had been expecting this call for 3 days now. The Zephyrian Empire was one of the most powerful groups in the galaxy. Their Empress rarely contacted humans directly. "Put it through, Jake." The main screen lit up with the image of Empress Veltara. She was tall and elegant with blue crystal-like skin that sparkled in the light. Her large eyes were a deep purple color, and she wore a crown made of silver metal that seemed to float above her head. "Commander Morgan," the Empress said. Her voice sounded like music. "I need to speak with you about a very important matter." Lisa straightened her uniform. "Of course, Your Majesty. How can humanity help the Zephyrian Empire?" The Empress looked nervous. This was strange because Zephyrians were known for being calm and collected. "I have a problem that no one in the galaxy has been able to solve. I need someone to watch my children." Lisa blinked. "Your children?" "Yes, I have 3 young ones. They are still babies, but they are difficult to manage." The Empress paused. "The Galactic Council is having an important meeting that will last for 6 days. I cannot bring my children to such a formal event." Behind the Empress, Lisa could see 3 floating containers. They were made of clear material, and she could see small shapes moving inside them. Occasionally, bright flashes of light came from the containers. "What makes them so difficult to care for?" Lisa asked. The Empress's aide, a furry creature with yellow and green stripes, stepped forward. His fur was changing colors rapidly, which Lisa knew meant he was very nervous. "Commander," the aide said, "the young princes and princess have special abilities. They can breathe plasma instead of fire. They can walk through walls. They can also send their thoughts and feelings to others." Lisa raised her eyebrows. "And you want humans to babysit them?" The Empress nodded. "Every childcare expert in 17 different star systems has tried and failed. The Zephyrian nanny ran away after 2 hours. She said the children were too dangerous. The Carillion robot was completely destroyed. Even the metamorphian shapeshifter, who can change into any form, gave up and left." Lisa looked at the containers again. The small shapes inside seemed to be moving around playfully. What happened with these other babysitters? The aide consulted his electronic tablet. The first nanny tried to keep the children in a locked room. The youngest one walked through the wall and got lost in the air vents. It took 6 hours to find him. The robot tried to use force fields to contain them, but the middle child melted through the equipment with her plasma breath. The shapeshifter lasted the longest, the Empress added. But when the oldest child started projecting nightmares into his mind, he decided it was too much. Lisa studied the Empress's face. She could see real worry there. "Your Majesty, why do you think humans would be any different?" The Empress leaned forward. "Commander, your species has a reputation throughout the galaxy. When other races face impossible problems, they often say, 'Get a human to fix it.' Humans are known for finding solutions where others see only problems." Jake Rivers spoke up from his station. "Commander, we've heard similar things from other alien contacts. They say humans are stubborn and refuse to give up." The Empress nodded eagerly. "Exactly. What others call chaos, humans seem to call a challenge. I have studied your species' history. Human parents regularly deal with children who break things, refuse to listen, and cause trouble. Perhaps my children would not seem so impossible to you." Lisa thought about this. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 5 years ago. They were still trying to prove themselves to the older, more advanced civilizations. This could be a chance to show what humans could do. "What would be involved in caring for your children?" Lisa asked. The Empress looked relieved that Lisa was even considering it. "They need to be fed 3 times a day with special minerals. They need to be kept warm, but not too warm. They require mental stimulation or they become bored and destructive. Most importantly, they need to feel safe and loved." "How old are they?" In human terms, they would be like 3-year-old children. Old enough to walk and talk, but too young to understand consequences or control their abilities. Lisa's mind was already working. She thought about her own nephew back on Earth. He was 4 years old and constantly getting into trouble. Last month, he had figured out how to unlock the safety latches on all the cabinets and had painted the kitchen wall with his mother's lipstick. "The compensation would be very generous," the Empress continued. "More than that, the political goodwill would be enormous. If humans could succeed where others have failed, it would establish your species as truly valuable members of the galactic community. Lisa made her decision. I'll need to discuss this with my crew, but I believe we can help you, Your Majesty. The change in the Empress's expression was dramatic. Her purple eyes brightened and her crystal skin seemed to glow with relief. You would truly consider this? Even knowing how dangerous it could be. Your Majesty, humans have been dealing with difficult children for thousands of years. We've learned that the key is not to fight their nature, but to work with it. The aide's fur had stopped changing colors and was now a steady blue, which Lisa knew meant he was feeling hopeful. When would you need us to take them? Lisa asked. The summit begins in 2 days. Could you prepare by then? Lisa nodded. We'll make it work. Send us all the information you have about their care, their abilities, and their personalities. Commander Morgan, the Empress said formally, if you succeed in this, the Zephyrian Empire will be forever in humanity's debt. After the transmission ended, Lisa turned to face her crew. Jake was grinning, but she could see concern in his eyes too. Commander, he said, are we really going to babysit 3 baby dragons that can melt through metal and read minds? Lisa smiled. Jake, my sister has twin boys who once figured out how to take apart their cribs and build a fort out of the pieces. How much harder could this be? She was about to find out. The next morning, Lisa called a meeting with her senior crew. They gathered in the main conference room aboard the Liberty. Pete Collins, the chief engineer, was already there when she arrived. He was studying a tablet full of technical information about Zephyrian biology. So these little guys can melt through titanium? Pete asked, looking up from his reading. Dr. Amy Watson, the ship's doctor and scientist, nodded. According to the data the Empress sent us, their plasma breath can reach temperatures of over 3,000 degrees. That's hot enough to melt most metals we use on the ship. Jake Rivers shook his head. And they can walk through walls? Not exactly walk through, Amy corrected. They can change their molecular structure to phase through solid matter. It's like they become ghost-like for a few seconds. Lisa sat down at the head of the table. What about the mind reading? It's not really mind reading, Amy explained. It's more like emotional broadcasting. They project their feelings and basic needs to anyone nearby. If they're scared, you'll feel scared. If they're happy, you'll feel happy too. Pete leaned back in his chair. And every advanced alien race in the galaxy has failed to handle 3 toddlers with these abilities? Lisa spread out the reports on the table. Let's look at what went wrong with the other babysitters. The Zytherian nanny tried to keep them in a single room. When the youngest phased through the wall, she panicked. The Carillion robot used containment protocols, Amy added, reading from another report. It treated them like dangerous prisoners instead of children. When they got upset and started using their abilities, the robot increased security measures. This made them more upset, which made them more destructive. Jake picked up another file. The Metamorphian shapeshifter actually did pretty well for 3 days. But then the oldest child had a nightmare and projected it directly into the shapeshifter's mind. The shapeshifter experienced the child's fear as if it was real and couldn't handle it. Lisa thought about this information. So the problem isn't that these children are evil or mean. They're just scared and confused when strangers try to control them with force. Pete nodded. It's like my nephew Tyler. When he gets overwhelmed, he acts out. Last time I babysat him, he locked himself in the bathroom and wouldn't come out. His mom tried to force the door, which made him cry harder. I sat outside and told him stories until he calmed down and opened the door himself. Exactly, Lisa said. The other species approached this like a security problem. We need to approach it like a parenting problem. Amy was making notes on her tablet. I've been studying their nutritional needs. They require specific minerals that can be found in standard galactic food supplies. They also need their environment to be kept at exactly 72 degrees. Too hot or too cold makes them uncomfortable. What about their sleep schedule? Jake asked. They sleep for 10 hours, then stay awake for 14 hours. During their awake time, they need constant mental stimulation or they get bored. Bored Zephyrian children tend to test their abilities, which usually means property damage. Pete was already sketching ideas on his tablet. I'm thinking we convert Cargo Bay 7 into a nursery. It's large enough for them to move around safely, and I can modify the environmental controls for the temperature they need. What about containing their abilities? Lisa asked. We don't contain them, Pete said with a grin. We give them safe ways to use them. I can create force field barriers that will stop them from phasing into dangerous areas, but leave plenty of space for them to explore. For the plasma breath, I'll set up heat-resistant targets they can practice on. Amy looked excited. That's brilliant. Instead of suppressing their natural abilities, we encourage them to learn control by making it fun. Lisa was impressed with how quickly her crew was adapting to the idea. What about the emotional projection? I think that might actually be helpful, Amy said. If we can feel what they're feeling, we'll know immediately if they're hungry, tired, scared, or bored. Most parents would love to know exactly what their baby needs. Jake was reading through the personality profiles the Empress had provided. The oldest is named Zix. He's apparently very curious and likes to explore. The middle child is Nala. She's artistic and enjoys creating things. The youngest is Core. He's described as energetic and playful. Those sound like normal kid traits to me, Pete said. Curious, creative, and energetic. The only difference is they have superpowers. Lisa stood up and walked to the window. She could see the Zephyrian royal cruiser docked with their ship. The Empress will be transferring the children in 6 hours. Pete, how long do you need to prepare the cargo bay? Give me 4 hours and I'll have it ready, Pete said confidently. Amy, I want you to prepare medical supplies and review their health records. If one of them gets sick or injured, we need to be ready. Already on it, Commander. Jake, I want you to research human child psychology and see if any of our standard techniques might work with Zephyrian children. Jake nodded. I'll contact my sister back on Earth. She's a kindergarten teacher. If anyone knows how to handle difficult kids, it's her. As the crew left to prepare, Lisa remained at the window. She was starting to understand why this mission was so important. It wasn't just about babysitting 3 alien children. It was about proving that humans could succeed where others had failed by using their most human trait: the ability to adapt and find creative solutions. 2 hours later, Pete called Lisa to see his progress. Cargo Bay 7 had been completely transformed. Instead of a sterile storage space, it now looked like the world's most advanced playground. Holographic projectors created colorful, moving displays on the walls. Soft, heat-resistant materials covered the floor. Force field barriers created safe boundaries without making the space feel like a prison. The force fields are programmed to react to their phasing ability, Pete explained. They can walk through them easily, but if they try to phase while moving too fast or in a dangerous direction, the fields will solidify and stop them. Amy arrived carrying a bag of medical supplies. I've also prepared some special treats. According to their dietary information, young Zephyrians love crystallized energy supplements. They're like candy to them. Jake appeared with a tablet full of notes. I talked to my sister. She says the key to handling difficult children is consistency, patience, and making them feel secure. She also suggested we establish clear routines so they know what to expect. Lisa looked around the transformed cargo bay. This is impressive work, everyone. But remember, we're not just trying to contain these children. We're trying to take care of them. They're scared babies who miss their mother. The intercom crackled to life. Commander Morgan to the docking bay. The Empress is ready to transfer the children. Lisa took a deep breath. Here we go, people. Time to show the galaxy what humans can do. As they walked toward the docking bay, Pete chuckled. You know, Commander, I never thought my biggest challenge as an engineer would be building toys for baby dragons. Lisa smiled. Pete, something tells me this is going to be the most important engineering project you've ever worked on. Lisa and her crew stood in the docking bay as the Empress approached with her 3 children. The containers holding the young Zephyrians were floating beside her, each one humming softly with energy. Lisa could see small shapes moving around inside and occasional flashes of bright light. Commander Morgan, the Empress said, I cannot express how grateful I am for your willingness to help. Lisa smiled. We're honored by your trust, Your Majesty. The Empress gestured to the containers. Before I open these, I must warn you one final time. My children are not like human babies. They are strong, intelligent, and their abilities can be dangerous if they become upset. Amy stepped forward. Your Majesty, we've studied their files carefully. We understand their needs and abilities. We're prepared. The Empress nodded and touched a control on the first container. The energy field dissolved and a small dragon emerged. He was about the size of a house cat, with shimmering blue and silver scales. His wings were folded against his back and his large golden eyes looked around the room with obvious curiosity. This is Zix, the Empress said softly. He is the oldest and the most adventurous. Zix immediately started exploring, sniffing at the walls and examining the humans with interest. When he spotted Pete's tool belt, he made a happy chirping sound and tried to reach for it. He likes mechanical things, the Empress explained. On our ship, he often phases through walls to explore the engine rooms. The second container opened, revealing a smaller dragon with purple and pink scales that seemed to glow from within. She had delicate features and moved more gracefully than her brother. This is Nala. She loves beautiful things and enjoys creating art. Nala immediately noticed the holographic displays Pete had installed around the docking bay. She made soft cooing sounds and reached toward the moving colors with her tiny claws. The third container held the smallest dragon, with bright green scales that sparkled like emeralds. As soon as he was free, he began flying in quick circles around the room, making excited squeaking noises. And this is Kor, the youngest. He has more energy than both his siblings combined. Lisa knelt down to get closer to the children's eye level. Immediately, she felt a wave of emotions wash over her. Curiosity from Zix, wonder from Nala, and pure joy from Kor. But underneath it all, she sensed nervousness and a longing for their mother. "Hello, little ones," Lisa said gently. "We're going to take good care of you while your mama is at her important meeting." Zix approached Lisa cautiously. He sniffed her hand, then made a soft purring sound. When Lisa didn't move away or try to grab him, he seemed to relax. The Empress watched this interaction with surprise. "He usually hides from strangers," she murmured. Pete knelt down and opened his toolkit. Zix's eyes went wide with excitement. "Want to see something cool?" Pete asked, pulling out a small device that projected holographic blueprints into the air. Zix chirped happily and tried to touch the floating images. When his claw passed through them, he looked confused but delighted. Meanwhile, Amy had taken out her tablet and was showing Nala pictures of different colored crystals. The young dragon's scales began to change color, mimicking the images on the screen. Kor had discovered that Jake was wearing a badge that beeped softly. The little dragon was flying in loops around Jake's head, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. The Empress looked amazed. "They have never been this calm with strangers before." Lisa stood up. "Your Majesty, children respond to how adults treat them. If we're calm and patient, they'll be calm too." "The previous caretakers always seemed afraid," the Empress admitted. Perhaps the children sensed that fear. Jake was gently redirecting Kor's attention to a small toy that made musical sounds when touched. "Kids are smart. They know when adults are nervous or scared. These little guys probably felt like they were doing something wrong." The Empress spent the next hour explaining each child's routine and preferences. Zix liked to take apart toys to see how they worked. Nala enjoyed drawing with special crystal markers that glowed. Kor loved games that involved flying and chasing. "Their bedtime is very important," the Empress stressed. "They must sleep for exactly 10 hours or they become very cranky the next day." Amy was taking careful notes. "What about their diet?" "They eat 4 times per day, small portions of crystallized minerals mixed with this special powder." The Empress handed Amy a container of sparkling purple dust. "Mix 1 spoonful with water and it becomes like a thick soup they enjoy." When it was time for the Empress to leave, the emotional atmosphere in the room changed dramatically. The 3 young dragons suddenly realized their mother was going away. Zix made distressed chirping sounds. Nala's scales turned dark blue, which apparently meant sadness. Kor stopped flying and landed on the floor looking lost. Lisa felt their fear and sadness as if it were her own emotion. It was overwhelming for a moment, but she forced herself to stay calm. "It's okay," Lisa said softly, sitting down on the floor. "Mama has to go to work, but she'll come back. We're going to have fun while she's gone." The Empress knelt down and gently touched each of her children. She spoke to them in their own language, a series of musical tones that seemed to comfort them. "I told them you are friends who will keep them safe," she explained to Lisa. "I also promised I would return in 6 days." After the Empress left, the 3 young dragons huddled together in a corner, looking miserable. Lisa could feel their loneliness like a physical weight in her chest. "Okay, team," Lisa said to her crew. "This is the real test. How do we help them feel better?" Pete had an idea. He activated the holographic projectors he had installed in the cargo bay. Suddenly, the room filled with floating images of stars, planets, and colorful nebulae. It was like being inside a beautiful space scene. Zix looked up with interest. The moving stars seemed to catch his attention, and he began to follow one with his eyes. Amy opened her bag of supplies and pulled out the crystallized treats. The sweet smell immediately got Nala's attention. She approached cautiously and accepted a small piece, which made her scales glow brighter. Jake started playing a gentle melody on his tablet. Kor's head tilted to listen, and after a few moments he began to fly in slow circles matching the rhythm of the music. Within an hour, all three dragons were actively exploring their new environment. Zix had discovered that he could phase through certain parts of Pete's force field barriers, which delighted him. Nala was experimenting with creating patterns on the walls using her plasma breath at very low intensity. Kor was playing a game where he tried to catch holographic butterflies that Jake had programmed. "Look at that," Amy said quietly. "They're not destructive at all when they're happy and engaged." Lisa nodded. The other babysitters made the mistake of trying to stop them from using their abilities. "We're giving them safe ways to practice and learn." As the day continued, Lisa began to understand each child's personality better. Zix was indeed very curious, but he was also careful. He tested each new thing thoroughly before committing to it. Nala was artistic and gentle, creating beautiful patterns wherever she went. Kor was energetic but also affectionate, often flying over to nuzzle against the humans when he wanted attention. By evening, when it was time for their first meal, all three dragons were comfortable enough to eat while sitting near the humans. They even seemed to enjoy the company during their dinner. "Day 1 is almost complete," Lisa said to her crew as they watched the young dragons playing quietly together. "I think we might actually be able to do this," Pete grinned. "Commander, I hate to say it, but this is actually kind of fun." By the third day, Lisa and her crew had fallen into a comfortable routine with the three young dragons. The morning started like all the others, with Kor flying excited loops around the cargo bay while Zix examined Pete's latest mechanical puzzle and Nala created glowing artwork on the specially designed wall panels. But something was different about Nala. Usually, she was the calmest of the three children, spending hours carefully creating intricate patterns with her controlled plasma breath. Today she seemed restless. Her scales, normally a beautiful shifting purple and pink, had turned a dull gray color. Amy noticed it first. "Lisa, come look at Nala. Something's not right." Lisa approached the young dragon who was huddled in her favorite corner. Usually Nala would chirp a greeting and show off her latest artwork. Today she barely looked up. Lisa knelt down next to her. Immediately she felt a wave of discomfort and sadness from the little dragon. "She doesn't feel well," Lisa said. Amy pulled out her medical scanner and ran it over Nala carefully. The readings showed elevated body temperature and irregular energy patterns. According to the Empress's medical notes, this looks like a common childhood illness. Zephyrian children get it when they're stressed or missing their parents. Pete looked up from where he was helping Zix build a complex tower out of magnetic blocks. "What kind of symptoms?" "Loss of appetite, low energy, difficulty controlling their abilities, and emotional distress," Amy read from her tablet. The previous caretakers usually contacted the Royal Medical Team immediately when this happened. Jake was keeping Kor entertained with a flying game, but he was listening to the conversation. What did the medical team do? "They would sedate the child and use advanced medical equipment to stabilize their condition," Amy explained. It was effective, but it usually took several days for full recovery. Lisa studied Nala carefully. The little dragon's breathing was slightly labored, and her plasma breath was flickering unpredictably instead of the steady, controlled flame she normally produced. "Amy, do the medical notes say anything about emotional causes for this illness?" Amy scrolled through the information. "Actually, yes. It says that young Zephyrians are very sensitive to emotional stress. Separation from parents, fear, or feeling unsafe can trigger the physical symptoms." Lisa thought about her own nieces and nephews back on Earth. When they got sick, sometimes the best medicine wasn't pills or machines, but comfort and attention from someone who cared about them. "I don't think we need to call the medical team yet," Lisa decided. "Let's try something else first." She sat down next to Nala and gently extended her hand. The young dragon looked at her with tired golden eyes but didn't move away. "You miss your mama, don't you?" Lisa said softly. Nala made a soft, sad sound that was barely audible. Pete had an idea. He activated one of his holographic projectors and began searching through the files the Empress had provided. "The Empress gave us some personal recordings for emergencies. Let me see if I can find something that might help." After a few minutes, Pete found what he was looking for. The holographic projector came to life, showing a three-dimensional image of Empress Veltara. In the recording, she was reading what appeared to be a Zephyrian bedtime story, her musical voice filling the cargo bay. Nala's reaction was immediate. Her scales brightened slightly and she lifted her head to watch the hologram of her mother. Amy sat down on Nayla's other side. You know what might help even more? If we act like a family while she's feeling sick. Lisa understood what Amy meant. Instead of treating Nala like a patient, they should treat her like a child who needed comfort and care. Jake brought Core over, and Pete guided Zix to join them. Soon, all 5 humans and 3 dragons were sitting together in a circle, watching the Empress's recordings. The change in Nala was gradual but noticeable. Her breathing became easier, and her scales began to show hints of their normal color. More importantly, Lisa could feel through the emotional connection that Nala was becoming less anxious. I think she was feeling lonely and scared, Amy observed. The illness might be as much emotional as physical. Over the next few hours, they took turns sitting with Nala. Pete showed her his gentlest mechanical toys. Jake played soft music that seemed to soothe her. Amy offered small sips of water and tiny amounts of her favorite crystallized treats. But it was when Zix and Core began to show their own concern for their sister that the real healing began. Zix, who usually spent his time exploring, stayed close to Nala and shared his favorite toys with her. Core, normally bouncing around the room, flew slow, gentle circles around his sister, occasionally landing to nuzzle against her. Look at that, Pete said quietly. They're taking care of each other. By late afternoon, Nala was feeling well enough to try creating a small, glowing pattern on the wall. It wasn't as complex as her usual artwork, but the fact that she wanted to create something at all was a good sign. Lisa realized that this experience had taught them something important about caring for the young dragons. They weren't just powerful beings who needed to be contained and managed. They were children with emotional needs, family bonds, and the capacity to love and worry about each other. The previous caretakers probably saw the illness as a medical emergency, Amy said. They focused on treating the symptoms instead of addressing the cause. Jake nodded. But kids don't just need medicine when they're sick. They need to feel safe and loved. As evening approached, Nala was almost back to her normal self. Her scales were bright again, and her plasma breath was steady and controlled. She had even eaten a full meal, which relieved everyone. During their bedtime routine, something special happened. Instead of sleeping in separate corners as they usually did, all 3 young dragons curled up together in a pile. Nala was in the middle with Zix and Core protectively positioned on either side of her. That's new, Amy observed. They've never slept together before. Lisa smiled as she watched the 3 siblings settling down for the night. I think today showed them that they can count on each other, and on us. They're starting to feel like we're a family. Pete was cleaning up the day's toys and checking the environmental systems. You know, Commander, I never thought I'd say this, but taking care of these little guys has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. Jake was reviewing the day's notes on his tablet. My sister is going to love hearing about this. She always says that the best part of working with children is watching them learn to care for each other. Amy was preparing the medical log entry for the day. I'm going to note that emotional support and family bonding were more effective than medical intervention for treating stress-related illness in young Zephyrians. Lisa looked around the cargo bay that had become a nursery, then at her crew who had become temporary parents, and finally at the 3 sleeping dragons who had become their temporary children. You know what the best part is? Lisa said. We're not just succeeding where others failed. We're discovering new ways to understand and connect with an alien species. This kind of cultural exchange could change how humans and Zephyrians interact for generations. As the night shift began, and the cargo bay lights dimmed to simulate nighttime, Lisa felt a deep sense of satisfaction. They had faced their first real crisis and handled it not with technology or force, but with patience, understanding, and love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, 3 young dragons were sleeping peacefully, surrounded by humans who cared about their well-being. In a galaxy full of advanced technology and complex politics, sometimes the most important breakthroughs came from the simple act of treating others with kindness. On the 6th and final day, Lisa woke up early to check on the 3 young dragons. She found them already awake, playing together in the morning light that streamed through the cargo bay windows. Zix was showing his siblings how to make the holographic stars dance by moving their claws through the projected images. Nala was adding splashes of colored light to the display, with careful bursts of her plasma breath. Core was flying loops through the whole creation, making it look like a living constellation. Lisa smiled as she watched them, Over the past 6 days, she had seen them grow not just more comfortable with the humans, but more confident in controlling their abilities. They were learning that their powers didn't have to be scary or destructive. With the right guidance and safe space to practice, they could be beautiful and useful. "Good morning, little ones," Lisa said as she entered the bay. All 3 dragons turned toward her with happy chirping sounds. Kor immediately flew over and did a little loop around her head, which had become his way of saying hello. Zix approached more cautiously but bumped his head against her hand in greeting. Nala showed off the pattern she had been creating on the wall, her scales glowing with pride. Through their emotional connection, Lisa felt their happiness and excitement, but also something else. A growing sense of anticipation that she recognized from her own childhood. It was the feeling of waiting for a parent to come home. Amy arrived with the morning meal, followed by Pete and Jake. The routine they had established over the past week was so natural now that it felt like they had been caring for the dragons for months instead of days. "Any word from the Empress?" Pete asked as he checked the environmental controls. "She sent a message last night," Jake replied. "The Galactic Council meetings ended successfully. She should be arriving around midday." Lisa noticed that the dragons seemed to understand what they were talking about. Their emotional broadcasts became more excited, and they began playing more energetically than usual. "They know Mama's coming home," Amy observed. Over the morning, Lisa reflected on everything they had learned during the week. The key to success hadn't been advanced technology or special training. It had been treating the young dragons like what they were, children who needed structure, affection, and opportunities to explore the world safely. Pete had designed toys and activities that let them practice their abilities in positive ways. Amy had learned to read their emotional and physical needs with the same instinct she used with human patients. Jake had discovered that music and games could redirect their energy when they became overstimulated. Most importantly, they had all learned that the dragons' abilities weren't separate from their personalities. Zix's curiosity led him to phase through walls because he wanted to explore. Nala's artistic nature expressed itself through plasma breath because that was her way of creating beauty. Kor's energy made him fly constantly because movement was how he experienced joy. Around noon, the ship's communication system announced the arrival of the Zephyrian Royal Cruiser. Lisa felt a sudden spike of excitement from all 3 dragons. They had been anticipating this moment all morning, but now that it was really happening, they could barely contain themselves. Kor began flying in rapid circles. Zix started pacing back and forth. Nala's scales were shifting through all the colors of the rainbow in rapid succession. "Easy, little ones," Lisa said gently. "She'll be here soon." When the cargo bay doors opened and Empress Veltara entered, the reunion was immediate and overwhelming. All 3 young dragons rushed toward their mother, making joyful sounds Lisa had never heard before. The Empress knelt down and gathered all 3 of them into her arms, her own crystal features glowing with happiness. Lisa and her crew stood back and watched the family reunion. Through the emotional connection, they could feel the pure love and relief flowing between the mother and her children. "My precious ones," the Empress said in her musical voice, "I missed you so much." For several minutes, the family simply held each other. Then the Empress stood and turned toward Lisa and her crew. Her expression was one of amazement and gratitude. "Commander Morgan, I cannot believe what I am seeing. My children are not just healthy and safe. They are happy. They are calm. They seem to have grown during our time apart," Lisa smiled. "They're wonderful children, Your Majesty. It was our honor to care for them." The Empress looked around the converted cargo bay, taking in all the modifications Pete had made. "This is extraordinary. You have created not just a containment facility, but a home." Zix had noticed his mother looking at his favorite mechanical toys and was eagerly trying to show her how they worked. Nala was projecting images on the wall to demonstrate the new techniques she had learned. Kor was performing aerial maneuvers that were far more controlled than anything he had been able to do a week ago. "They have learned so much," the Empress marveled. "Their control over their abilities has improved dramatically. How did you accomplish this?" Amy stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we discovered that their abilities develop best when they feel safe and loved. Instead of restricting their powers, we gave them positive ways to practice and learn." Pete nodded. "We treated them like children who happened to have special abilities, not like dangerous creatures who needed to be contained." Jake added, "We also learned that they take care of each other. When Nala was sick, her brother stayed close to comfort her. Family bonds are very important to them. The Empress listened to all of this with growing wonder. The Galactic Council was very interested to hear about this experiment. When I told them that humans had succeeded where others failed, they were quite impressed. Lisa was curious about this. What was their reaction? Several species have asked if humans would be willing to provide childcare services for their own difficult offspring, the Empress said with a smile. It seems that every civilization has children who challenge traditional caretaking methods. Pete chuckled. We might need to think about expanding our operation. The Empress became more serious. Commander Morgan, what you have accomplished here goes beyond childcare. You have shown that different species can understand and connect with each other in ways we never imagined. My children have formed genuine bonds with all of you. As if to prove this point, Zix approached Pete and offered him a small mechanical toy he had been working on. It was clear that this was a gift, something the young dragon had made himself. Nala flew over to Amy and created a beautiful glowing pattern in the air, then touched the wall to make it permanent. It was her way of leaving a piece of art for Amy to remember her by. Core performed an elaborate aerial dance for Jake, incorporating moves he had learned while playing their flying games. They want to give us something to remember them by, Amy said softly. Clearly moved by the gesture, the Empress watched this exchange with deep emotion. In our culture, gift-giving to non-family members is reserved for those who have earned genuine love and respect. They are saying goodbye to family. Lisa felt tears in her eyes. Over the past week, she had grown genuinely attached to the three young dragons. Saying goodbye was harder than she had expected. Your Majesty, Lisa said, if you ever need us again, we would be honored to help. The Empress smiled. I believe that will happen sooner than you think. The Galactic Council has asked me to propose a cultural exchange program. They want to learn more about human approaches to interspecies cooperation. As the Empress gathered her children to leave, she turned back to Lisa one final time. Commander Morgan, when I first contacted you, I hoped you could solve an impossible problem. What you have done instead is shown the galaxy a new way forward. Humans have a gift for seeing possibilities where others see only obstacles. After the Zephyrian family left, Lisa and her crew stood in the now quiet cargo bay. The space felt strangely empty without the sounds of playing dragons and the warm glow of their emotional connections. You know, Pete said, looking at the mechanical toy Zix had given him, I never thought I'd miss the chaos. Jake was examining the musical device Core had been fascinated with. My sister is never going to believe this story. Amy was studying the permanent artwork Nala had created on the wall. We should leave this here. A reminder of what we accomplished. Lisa nodded. More than that, a reminder of what's possible when we approach the unknown with open hearts instead of closed minds. 2 weeks later, Lisa received an official communication from the Galactic Council. Humanity had been selected to establish the first interspecies childcare and cultural exchange program. The program would help species throughout the galaxy learn new approaches to understanding and caring for each other's young. As Lisa read the proposal, she smiled. Humanity had found their place in the galactic community, not through superior technology or military might, but through their most human quality, the ability to love and care for children, no matter how different those children might be. The impossible babysitting job had become something much more important. It had become the foundation for a new kind of diplomacy, built on understanding, patience, and the simple recognition that all children, regardless of species, needed the same basic things: safety, love, and the freedom to grow into who they were meant to be.